As you can see, I've moved to the indoor trainer. Actually, the second session that I do indoors because the weather finally turned so shitty, super rainy outdoors. So now I'm here indoors training like many of you do. Just one interesting thing about how I currently set it up and what I do. So I guess the most unusual is the virtual training or the virtual riding environment that I'm currently using, because of course I've done a lot of Zwifting, but recently you may have heard about the IndieVelo acquisition from TrainingPeaks, which now is the foundation for what they call TrainingPeaks Virtual or TP Virtual. And look, I'm running this right now. Yeah, I'm currently running this on my smartphone. It works pretty well in like the smartphone version, and I don't need more. I don't need this virtual world on a big screen. But what I actually like is the cockpit. I don't know what you would call it, but the UI they give you when you're riding. I actually prefer it compared to Zwift, at least in the sense of all the data that is available. So everything from, even on a small smartphone screen, you can easily read all your numbers, the power, the heart rate, and so on. And then, for instance, the elevation profile of the course is better than in Zwift. Overall, it's definitely more clunky and not as clean as Zwift, and there are less people using it, and yada yada yada. So not on the same level, but currently I'm playing around with it, seeing if I really need Zwift for anything that I do with it. And so far my takeaway is actually not, though I'm not one of the people who uses Zwift for all the social reasons, so that definitely may influence this. We haven't done a training check-in in a long time, so let's talk a bit about the training and where we are at. In like the very first episode that I published on this channel, I talked about my goals long term. Didn't really go into how I approach my current training. In December, essentially, I started to do proper threshold intensity, and I finished a block with a 3x20 with, I believe, 4 minutes in between sets at threshold. At this point my FTP was 220 watts, so yeah, not huge numbers, but also don't forget I'm a 60-ish kilogram person, right? What I'm doing right now is bringing back intensity, but did it slowly. So this week I did some outdoor rides with like unstructured intensity, and my first indoor session was like 3x15 sweet spot. And I still see the effects, like even now, if you look at my data here, I'm doing like 120 to 130 watts, so really the rather low end of my endurance zone, and my heart rate is 137, 138, which usually at this intensity or before I got sick, it would have been at like 125-ish. Okay, you see, that is a sign of either still sickness, or it is a sign of having lost some fitness. I guess most likely it's a combination of the two. I think 2 years ago there was a 7-week stretch where I couldn't train because I had such a bad cough and sickness. And then later I played a bit more around with training when sick, and I realized that even when I have a cough, because nowadays these coughs are so persistent with me and other people I talk to as well, so it's not anymore like you're sick for a couple of days and then you're good again like it used to be. I don't know if that is a COVID impact, I don't know if that is a matter of age and getting older. Probably it's all of it to an extent, but it definitely means for me, when I'm sick, I by now found out when I can train. Like right now, I'm not 100% healthy, I'm like at 95%, but I can train. But I also know I shouldn't overdo it, because there is some dangerous stuff. If you're too sick, then you can risk stuff like, for instance, a heart muscle inflammation. And that shit is really serious, and you don't want to play around with this. My initial plan was to go right into a VO2max block after the threshold week, after a recovery week to be precise, that I had planned after the threshold block. But couldn't do it this way, obviously, because I mean, I don't want to play around, especially with the high intensity, while still being not 100% recovered. So instead, I'm now doing sweet spot. I'm not looking to progress this over like 3 weeks or anything. I guess next week my goal will be to introduce proper threshold and see how this goes. Currently I do all my training, or I plan all my training on the fly. At this point maybe it makes sense to talk a bit about my training history. So like, I think I started seriously training in 2021, and initially I discovered Trainer Road, and I used Trainer Road for 2 years. And then I decided I want to try working with a real coach. I'm a big fan of the Empirical cycling podcast and Kolie. So I reached out to Kolie and I asked what the training rates were. As a founder, you're obviously not rich and everything is a hustle, but I could afford the rate that he offered me with a coach from his roster, Will. Shout out to Will, and it was really good. We worked together for like 9 months or so, and then our startup got busto and I had to cancel training, which I'm sad about. I will definitely return. So I was super happy with working with Will as a coach, but yeah, cannot do it. But what I did in all these years, on top, reading a lot of the structured training books out there and just listening to good podcasts and so on, I guess I learned a fair amount of training and how to approach it. I'm definitely not a coach, but I feel confident enough to at least program my own training in a sensible way. And the key, if you take it on the fly, is to understand your own body, to have a good relationship with it, and to feel the fatigue. And I guess that is something that I'm quite good at, and that is why I feel like I can take it a bit on the fly and program it this way. So I have a general outline for what a week looks like, and I also have like the macro view on the entire season and when I want to be good. If I wouldn't have gotten sick, I would now be in like a first build block. But yeah, for now I'm in a base to build kind of transition, getting healthy again block. I don't have any like serious competitive aspirations this year, so it's all about building and getting a training history that I can be really good in my 40s. Hello, this is me from the future as I'm editing this video and as I'm getting harassed by my cat that wants some food. I'm just here to let you know I'd be stoked if you subscribe, if you like, if you hit the bell icon, all the good things, so you can follow my training story and my goal to become really good at gravel racing in my 40s. Cat, don't do this. And then hit all the icons, do the good YouTube stuff. I much appreciate it. Today's my second VO2max session on the trainer. I moved the trainer to a place where it can stay consistently, because now it has gotten cold and the weather is now in a way here that makes sense. Yesterday I did a session of 4x4s. I was really dying, couldn't take a video. Today I'm going for 6x3s and did the first set now, the first interval. It was hard but much more manageable and better than yesterday. So let's see how it goes. Still, probably if you remember, like before Christmas, I did a 4x4 session at the end of a threshold block to prepare for a VO2 block. Then I did get sick. But there I was around 20 watts higher in the 4x4s than yesterday on average. So yeah, definitely lost some fitness, especially on the top end. but I'm working back into it. Still early in the season, and now I'm in my first proper VO2 block, going for, I guess, 3 weeks. This is the first one with 2 sessions, maybe, depending how I feel later in the week. I'll add a 3rd session this week, and then 2 hard ones per week for the next 2 weeks, unless something changes. So as you can see, I'm still on the indoor trainer. Outside the weather is pretty good. It's gotten warm again. However, I have an issue while riding here a few days ago. The cable here, my shifter cable, yes, I'm still on mechanical shifting. My shifter cable just ripped apart and I need to replace it. And I couldn't get to it yet. So, back-to-back VO2max days. This week, Wednesday, Thursday, and depending on how it goes, as I will not be doing a long ride, I think I'll put in a 3rd session tomorrow on Sunday, and then there is 1 more week to go next week before a well-deserved recovery week. The protocol I'm following is the Kolie protocol. The goal is to go hard, like close to all out. The max that you can maintain for the interval duration. So if you do 4-minute intervals, your max 4, and max 5 minute if you do 5 minutes, for instance. So heart rate really should be close to your max, or even max out at some point. That is the goal. And you ideally do it at a pretty high cadence, because at the high cadence your breathing becomes more what he calls gasping. So that is really the goal, because at this point physiologically you are training your VO2max system. So that is what we are doing, or that is what we are after, in order to stress the system in the way that we get the right adaptations we are looking for. Maybe interesting, the scheduling on back-to-back days, kind of a fatigue management trick, so you don't bury yourself too deep a hole. So yeah, I do go for 2 days. If I feel good, I will add in even this week a 3rd session, and I guess judging by how I feel today, tomorrow I will definitely be good for a 3rd hard day, and then a good rest day on Monday. But yeah, if you do these VO2max blocks, really managing the fatigue and planning enough time for recovery in between to get the adaptations you're after, of course, critical. So my VO2 block is in the books. Finished it yesterday actually, and I'm pretty happy it's over, but I also did well, saw progression through the 3 weeks, and now it's all in the bank. One thing that I also wanted to still talk about briefly is nutrition. Of course, you really have to fuel this well. So one thing that I did, for instance, is I stepped on the scale more or less on a daily basis, just to see that I'm not under fueling and losing any kind of weight. So yeah, that is something I would really recommend. You eat a shit ton of carbs in all your meals. Also, don't forget about protein, all the other macronutrients that are important. Don't be afraid of consuming a bit of fat, especially the good fats, and fuel yourself, because you really need it for your performance. And if you do such hard training, I ended up doing 2 weeks with 3 sessions, and the final week I did 2 sessions, but really still like did 5x5 and 8x3. So really pushed it, and this you need to fuel, even if you do it at low watts like I do, because I don't have a huge FTP. But the stronger you get, the more fueling you actually need, the more nutrition you need. So eat what you can eat and what your body needs. Don't be afraid to eat.
That's the end. Like, share, subscribe if you want to follow the journey. See you soon.